Want to turn to the chip crisis. The ongoing semiconductor shortage may cost the auto industry more than previously expected. According to a new report from global consulting firm Alex Partners, it is now expected to cost the sector $110 billion in revenue this year. That's up 81% from the firm's initial estimate of $60 billion back in late January. Joining me right now is the China Beige Book CEO, Leland Miller. Leland, thanks very much for being here. It's great to see you this morning. I want to get your take on this chip shortage and how China really weighs in here.
Well, look, semiconductors, chips, that's the political issue of 2021, no question. But I think what happens a lot is you have a conflation of two major issues. You have the global semiconductor shortage, which is really putting a pinch on automakers and other companies who badly need more chips. And then you have a question, which is a national security question at the top of the pyramid, with the most advanced chips that only a few companies in the world make. Mostly, only a few companies, one in particular, one's 100 miles from China. Is there a potential vulnerability in the U.S. supply chain for not having more U.S.-based, U.S.-produced chips? So you have these issues. Some of them have to do with China, and the question is, how do you solve them without confusing the two issues?
Yeah, I want to talk about the heavy hand of China. And there's a new note by Cornerstone Macro detailing how China's heavy-handedness, especially in sectors like technology, whether it's chips, not only putting pressure on Chinese companies, but also on multinational companies selling in China. The note suggesting this pressure could very well change global growth dynamics, Leland. For example, there's a heavy hand weighing on technology, on financials, so much so that the Vanguard Group staff, who was dialed into the video call that Nancy Lazar gave on this subject, they said that the $7 trillion money manager was actually abandoning its push for a mutual fund license. I thought that was really interesting, given the fact that so many financials think that, the Chinese market of 1.4 billion people is a real growth story. Given the CCP and its heavy-handedness on companies across the world, you see Vanguard pulling back on its desire to have that license. What's your take?
Well, look, for 15, 20 years, we've been hearing about how China is gradually opening to foreign companies. And there have been headlines in the last year or two about financial services and credit card services opening up inside China. So on the margins, that's true. But we have to keep in mind that in the U.S.-China economic relationship, there's relatively little leverage from the China side on the U.S. side. One of the main points of leverage will always be Chinese control, Chinese oversight of U.S. and other Western companies, in their economy. So even if they want to open up a little bit more, which is an open question, there will always be that leverage point which they'll need to utilize. And that means that foreign corporations, U.S. corporations, will always have their be under the thumb of Beijing when they're operating, because that's one of Beijing's best political leverage points in pushing back against the United States.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been reporting for a little while here about how this next leg of the economic war that the U.S. is having with China will take place in corporate America's backyard, because look at the treatment of the Ant Group. China's central bank is attempting to take control of the Ant Group's vast trove of consumer lending data. The latest front in Beijing's crackdown on Jack Ma. This is from the Financial Times. Indeed, the volume of Chinese captured data is already huge. It's expected to explode by 2025. Beijing's heavy hand reaching for that data is emblematic of its technology innovation squashing policy. This is all the Financial Times writing this. And you're going to see that on other companies as well, even if they're not Chinese, right? Shouldn't U.S. corporations take a look at what has taken place with Jack Ma and the Ant Group as one indicator of what will happen potentially to their own businesses, their own ability to control their own company if they're based in China?
Sure. I mean, look, we advise multinationals going into China, and there's no question there's opportunities over there, a lot of opportunities over there. But the thing that you try to grind in as much as possible with people who are entering China or trying to maintain a presence there is that everything that happens will be subject to the whims and the best interests of the party. And as long as that's true, you have to understand that this is not just a matter of win-win cooperation. It's looking at it through the lens of the party. And there are times in which foreign corporations doing well or or beating out Chinese companies will not be in the interest of the party. So this is something you cannot escape looking through this lens when you're doing business over there.
No, you can't. And I'm just wondering, all of these woke companies that like to criticize America, how they come to this decision to operate in China, given what's happened with the Uyghurs locked up, 1 million people, ethnic minorities locked up in China right now. Listen to what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Thursday. She says members of the ethnic minority groups in the U.S., quote, would be envious of the living conditions in China's western Xinjiang region if they visited the area today, says the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson. Okay, the propaganda that they try to sell to us about what's happening with the Uyghurs is just beyond. This is what this person says. If U.S. minorities would actually come to China and visit the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, I'm sure they would be very envious of being Chinese in this day and age. Can you imagine?
Well, I mean, this is the world we now live in. So I can imagine now. But look, what's happening in Xinjiang and the Chinese government's reaction to it is a significant step up from anything we've seen in the past few years. Before, what was happening in the corporate world was as a point of leverage for China. Now there's a lot of companies that are really being pushed back and saying, look, you can't equivocate over the Xinjiang issue. You can't talk about the dangers of forced labor. You can't talk about the dangers of Xinjiang cotton or polysilicon. You have to be all in for China or you're out. And that's created a major headache for U.S. corporations, for other Western corporations who thought they could sort of keep their head down indefinitely and try to do business without making this anything beyond that.
Yeah, but how do you keep your head down, Leland? I mean, how do you keep your head down in an environment where the Chinese Communist Party has gone in and invaded Hong Kong 25 years too soon? You've got, the goose step police walking through Hong Kong right now, the Chinese police walking on the grounds of Hong Kong. The world has not even reacted to what's taken place, and they've said many times, the CCP has said that they want to reunify Taiwan. Do you believe that at some point the CCP will invade Taiwan?
I think the risks in the Taiwan Strait are substantially more. I'm not looking at anything happening in the short term. I don't think it's in China's interest to make a move right now. But I do think that, after about 10 years of this not being a frontline issue, all of a sudden the U.S. relationship with Taiwan, Chinese threats over a potential invasion or some other type of pressure on Taiwan. These are some of the most important issues, some of the scariest issues in the world right now. And part of them come back to semiconductors, because the Chinese are still beholden in some ways to Taiwanese semiconductor makers. So you've got the politics, you've got the technology. These are real risks right now. I'm not scared in the short term, but people would be crazy not to have this on their radar.
Of course. Leland, it's great to catch up with you. Thanks very much for weighing in on this very important topic.